Hello guys, good afternoon and welcome back. Alright, so in this video we want to learn how to make our English trouser. Now, if you have not watched the cutting processes, please kindly go back to the cutting and watch it, because don't use another method of cutting and sew this for me, right? So that you follow the same procedure I am undergoing. So the first thing to do now is to start making our uh, front pockets. So now let us start with the men sewing proper. So this is my pocketing, and I believe we all must have known how this was cut. So go to my other video I made on the drafting to know the measurements I used. And as well, I believe we all know how these things were cut. So now, once you have gotten your pocketing, you are going to take your pocket facing. Bear in mind that I have folded here. Folding is very much better than weaving, because in weaving, you might not be able to achieve a neat weaving. So I use folding to achieve a perfect finishing. Then I will place this at the straight edge, right? At the straight edge this way. Then I will have to start from up here. Please note the steps I am taking so that you will have to replicate what I'm doing. Start from up here. I will thread this stuff this way. I will thread it all through to this very point, right? So I will thread round the shape. I will thread round the shape at the tip. I will thread round the shape at the tip to this very point. I will thread round the shape. So make sure you thread at the tip of this, right? Carefully. You have to spread your hands this way. Carefully. Thread all through. Now that I have sewn that part, the next to do is to cut off your thread. Now, we are going to bring the corresponding panel, that's the left panel of the trouser. You are bringing this panel, this is the right, so you bring the left panel of the trouser, which is this. Then note, please watch carefully, that this pocket facing will be at the right while you are placing this here. On no account should you take this other one that will be on the same side with your pocket facing. This is the first mistake most people will make. Make sure that once you are fixing your trouser pockets to your front panel, when you place the pocket slash area where you gummed, on the edge you had the lining slash, right? Your pocket facing should not be under. It should be outside this way. Must. There is no mistake. There is no two ways about it. Then you are placing this line half an inch across that slash line. Half an inch across the slash line this way. Then you are going to thread inside this angular folding. This angular fold is where you're going to thread. You're going to thread in this way. And make sure that when you're threading, the half inch you placed at the beginning was still maintained to the very end here. Don't go and make it to enter in this way. You are wrong. It will affect your finishing. So make sure that this half inch you placed here is also maintained all through. Half inch off from this folded edge is what I'm targeting. Make sure it's from the beginning to the very end. So once you get it that way, you now start from there and thread. And when threading, please don't sew too close to this folded line. Use the machine footer to be your guide so that you don't stitch too close to that point, right? Then cut your weaving thread, because you must have weaved. In some cases, you can still sew before you weave, right? Then thread all through to this very point, and then give it a V stitch as well. Give it a V stitch. So stitch all through this way, stitch all through this way, and then you double stitch there. After that, you cut your thread. You cut your thread, and then this is what I achieved. Look at this, the threading. Look at how it looks like at the inside. right? Half an inch up from this line I folded is what I targeted to sew this, right? Make sure this is half this way. Don't allow the down part to be bigger or smaller, or have to be bigger or smaller. It must be this way. Then once I've gotten this sewing now, you now fold this backwards. This is the time that this pocket facing will now fall inside. You put it inwards this way. Then if you are making chinos trouser, you have to double thread here, stitch at the tip, and also stitch another thread here. But since you are sewing an English trouser, it's only one line of thread that you will see here, right? Anyone that's coming here as second thread is decoration purposes. So now the gauge I use in doing this is that I make sure that I use my machine footer and thread quarter of an inch, quarter, right? This way. And your hands here must be straight enough. This is where your finishing starts from. If you're having finishing, this is where it starts from in trouser, because when the lines are not straight, your finishing will be zero. So you must make sure you pay attention to this area and then end it on that notch line. End it on that notch line. So you also cut your threads here. You also cut your threads. Your threading here must be as straight as possible, right? It must be as straight as possible. Then after this, you now bring out the pocket facing and then place this area this way. Place it 2.5 inches away from the edge of this fabric. Now, why are we placing it 2.5 inch away? Remember that we notched here by 2.5. That was the folding we tucked inside. So this 2.5 we are placing now is coming back to replace this folding under. Are we together? So whatever you use to notch your up pockets is what you are going to replace here. If you use 3 to notch, replace here at 3. If you use 2.5 or 2, replace here at 2. For some cases, when you are making for children or bigger people, you might notch 3 inches at the up. So whatever you notched when cutting, please replace it with the pocket facing now. So how then do you measure it? You have to place your tape from the threading you have made and then mark 2.5 here. Now, why are you placing from the threading? Remember that the side lines will have a joining coming down. So that side line, once it comes down, it now falls back to 2 inches exact, so that you have enough allowance at this edge. So I pray you understand what I just said. Then I will measure from here 2.5 inches, and then I will hold it firmly. Then I will thread the up pocket lining together with the panel this way. I will thread here this way. Please thread at the tip, right, so that it doesn't encroach or should be visible when you are locking your band. Then cut your threads. Cut your threads properly. Cut your threads properly. Then after that, you are going to align the side panel, the side line of this trouser with the side line of the pocket facing. The line must be straight here. It should never spill over like this or fall inside like this. No, it must align straight. It must align straight at this side. So once you have aligned it, make sure that there's no rumple on the pocket facing. Don't allow the pocket facing to have this rumple like this, right? It's not proper. No rumple should be seen at this area. You have to drag it down so that it laps properly this way. You go lap up this way, right? So once you lap it this way, you now stitch here half an inch down. Just stitch together with the pocket line, everything together. Just stitch it half an inch down this way. Now, the reason for this stitching is to enable it to hold firmly the panel and the pocket facing. Then trim off the excess threads here. Then at this point, raise your panel, the front panel, panel of the trouser. You raise it up. Then you will measure half an inch down from where that threading ended. Half an inch down, half an inch inside. Half inch down, half inch inside, and do your notching. So this is what you must do to achieve a perfect pocket finishing. Then notch this way. Watch where I place my scissors. I do not place it at the close edge here. Place it half an inch down, half an inch in. Notch it this way. You have a notch in this form, right? Then after that, tuck your hand inside the pocket this way and drag it out from the inside. Then hold it firmly, right? Then make sure that notch point, the 2 notch points must correspond this way. They must correspond this way. then it's advisable to start from that notch line to stitch so that it helps you to achieve a nice finishing as well. So start from that notch point this way. From that notch point, start from there, pin your machine, and then you stitch from there. You stitch from there. Then at this point, you can decide to give it an L-shaped stitching or a curvy stitching. Whichever one you want to do is okay. So you just stitch it that way and then give it a curve. I think a curve stitching is better off, right? So give it a curve and make sure it's not you're not chopping off the pocketing depth much. Then trim off the excesses from here. Trim off the excesses from here, right? Trim it off this way, and then make sure you properly have it in this form, and then tuck it in, push it in again, push the pocketing inside again. It comes out in this form. Then at this point, you are going to top stitch, right? You must top stitch. So you have to top stitch. I prefer to use my machine footer and lap it this way and top stitch. The essence of the top stitching is to make sure that this pocketing is strong enough to hold stuff like key, right, or your phone or anything that is heavy, so that it doesn't penetrate easily or tear off easily. Then stitch all right round that edge, which is your down part of your pocketing. Stitch all right round this way. Then when you come to this edge where you have that half inch down, you are going to give it an L-shape stitching in order to lock the opening that was meant to be there. So you raise your footer up, then lock it in this form. So this is how you fix your front pockets in your trouser. So look at it. Look at the results. So we have achieved a perfect and a proper front pocket. This is the finishing, right? So after you must have done this, the next thing to do now is to repeat the same process you did here on the other panel, and then I will do that and come back to show you the results. All right, so now for the other lining, other pocketing, now I have fixed my facing here, and then the placement of this pocket should also be on the opposite direction, right? Then thread all through this way as well, as shown in the first illustration. All right, guys, so now I am done doing the both pockets. So the next thing to do here is to put lining on your trouser. Now look at the both pockets. These are the pockets I have done, right? So you can see how beautiful and how relaxed it is. So the next thing to do here now is to put lining on the panels. Now remember, I showed you guys how to cut the lining or how to drop the lining. So I have already done the video on the cutting. So you should as well take it out and then use the same procedure to draft yours. So after this, the next thing to do here is to place your lining. And please make sure that when placing your lining, you're going to use the right side with the inside this way. Don't face the right side to the wrong side of the trouser panel. Face the wrong side of the lining to the wrong side of the lining of the panel of the trouser. Then place your lining properly well. You know that I told us that this lining should be a bit bigger than the main trouser. So start from the crouch point. Start from the crouch. This part is the most important part of the lining. Start from the crouch, then bend it down to the laps. If you are doing the left panel first, then bend it down to the lap. Then start from that lap area this way. Start from the laps area this way, and then you stitch. You stitch, right? So carefully, make sure you're stitching on the weaved parts. Stitch on the weaving. Don't stitch on a fresh body, so that the lines will not be visible when you are locking the trouser. Stitch on top of the weaving. It makes the work perfect and more precise. So stitch all through this way, and make sure that the crouch area as well is corresponding as well. And don't allow any tension to happen there, like any lining to drag the panel. Then carefully stitch the curves this way. Carefully stitch the curves. So once you are stitching on the weave point, this is what it will look like. So when you get to this stage, this is what it looks like. And then the next thing to do here is to stitch here. But before you stitch the up area, please, you are going to pleat the lining at the middle. That's, you are going to drag the end of the lining to come to this point, then pleat the excesses somewhere at the middle of the panel, right? So that, like I told us, the reason for that pleating, it helps to make the trouser to sit properly without having any compression or contraction when your customer puts the lining on. So when you stitch a bit midway, you pause and then pleat it, pleating, that folding. You can still decide to cut it equally, there's still no problem, right? So pleat it this way, and then make sure it comes to this very point, right? And then stitch all through that way, stitch all through this way. And once you get to this point, this is what you will have. I will cut off the up lining or the excesses later, right? So you make sure it's properly lapped or positioned, right? So place it properly, and then you stitch as well. So carefully make it lap, and then you stitch. So now I'm done drawing the lining, and then you trim off the excesses. You trim off the excesses, and the next thing to do now is to go and iron it out. You have to go and iron it out and arrange the lining to lap properly. So you go and iron it out. Look at this one. I have ironed it out already. You see how it's lapping, right? I have ironed this one out already. So this is how it must lap. There is no um, um, squeeze or anything on the fabric. It's so relaxed this way. So that's the sense of having a pleated lining at the underneath of your trouser. So after this, the next thing we are going to start dealing on now will be on fixing of our zip. All right. Now what you do now is to measure from the trouser point. I'm using 7 inches or 7.5. Let's use 7.3, 7.5, then 7.5, right? Then notch here, quarter inch in. Please note quarter inch in. Don't notch more than quarter. A little notch here is enough, right? Then bring your flap this way. The one that you have weaved. I have already weaved all my components. Then place the flap to be half inch higher than the main trouser panel. Very important. Or 1 inch higher, right? So place it half inch or 1 inch higher that way, and then lap it on that same position where your notching is. That way, make sure it's lapped in properly that way, and then start from that same point. Start from that same point. Clip your machine this way. Now, I usually like stitching at the end where the weaving ended. Don't stitch too much in. Stitch it a bit up from the weave point, right? So stitch from there, and then stitch all along that way, making sure that the panel is being held properly. Stitch all through to the end. Look at the stitching position or the points I have. Cut your threads, and then cut your thread this way. So this is what you will have. This stuff must be like this. It must come out like this. Very important, right? It must come out like that. Then the next thing to do now is to top stitch on this to make it lap or flatten. So you push the excesses towards the flap area. Push it this way towards the flap, and then stitch on the flap. Stitch on the flap this way. So push the excesses towards the flap this way. Make sure the under one is bent towards the flap, and then you stitch on the flap from that point that you had that your notching, right? So start from there and stitch on the flap. So start from there and stitch on the flap. Your stitching must be at the tip, please, very important. It must be at the tip that way. Stitch all along this way to the very end, right? Then after you must have done that, this is what it will look like. Then you bring zip. You bring zip. Make sure that you are using a corresponding color, black or any dark color. that will suit this. Possibly you buy the same color of zip you are using. So cut off your threads, right? Cut off your threading. This is what I just did. Then you're going to bring zip. I will show you guys how to place it and then fix your zip as well. Alright guys, so now we want to fix our zip. Now before you fix your zip, please, I want you to note one important thing I did here. Make sure that the flap you are fixing is on the left panel of your trouser. The left part where you have your left pocket, right? This is the panel you must fix this flap on. Please, don't fix it on the right. If you happen to do it on the right, you are sewing a female trouser. All male trousers, you must pick the left panel and fix your flap. If you want to sew for female, that is when you pick the right and fix your flap. So this is the point where we differentiate female wears and male wears. So if you are fixing the pocket for male, please pick the left panel. If you are fixing it for female, please pick the right panel, right? And bear in mind that the cutting method I showed us works for everybody. So the sewing now is what makes it different as well. So having said that, then you stitch accordingly. Then bring your zip. Make sure you bring a color that matches what you are sewing. Don't go use red and sew this kind of color, or white, right, or green. So either you use black, coffee brown, or the same color, or any dark color that will suit or that will not be awful when seen. So once you have gotten to this stage, now face down the zip track down to the body of the flap. Please watch carefully. Now, this zip ending, this zip part must lap at that point where you threaded. Ashimnini, it must lap at that point where you threaded. Alright, so having said that, then place this zip this way. I just have to re-emphasize on the importance of this, and then make sure that the zip iron or the zip stopper, right, is ½ inch below the panel of the trouser this way to give you room to fix your band. So once you have placed it this way, please align everything properly and then stitch on the other end, not inside. Stitch on the other end. So this zip placement is a gauge. It also has its own work. So don't just place it somewhere here. You are wrong. Don't place it at the center. You are wrong. You must place it close to that thread you have sewn with the flap, right? So make sure it's lapping at this point and then make it to be straight. So once you are done with that, then start from the downside and thread. Start from here and start threading, right? Then thread all along that track. Thread all along that track. And this is what you have. So after you must have done that, now the next thing to do here is to cut your threads as always, like I do emphasize in all my videos. Cut your threads this way. Cut your threads. Cut every protrusion. Then this is what you have. Then hold the zip this way and then bend it backwards. The teeth or the track comes up in front. So this is what you will have. Now, at this point as well, we are sewing English trouser. That's the extended band. So we are sewing what they call a confirmed trouser, right? This English trouser. Then also bring the other flap. Bring the other flap. Now bear in mind, if you are sewing Ankara at this point or a normal trouser, you don't need to keep it in. You have to fold this into two. But because we are sewing an English trouser, don't fold it. Place it inwards underneath this way, making sure that the both flaps are of the same height, right? And then making sure as well that the zip is flapping at the end point here. Then hold it down properly this way and then start from the downside as well to stitch. So make sure that your placements are corresponding. These two flaps must be equal length. If you don't make it to be equal, you will have your band to be of this nature instead of having a direct joining or pointing. Then stitch at the tip as well. Stitch at the tip as well, all through to the tip. And this is what you also have. Then after this, cut your threads and then you also cut your thread. Then the next thing to do is to bring the other panel. Then make sure that you have also notched it. And remember the measurement you used in notching was 7.5 for this particular trouser. So whatever you use in your own notching, please maintain the same notch measurement. So mark it as well, and then still notch the same quarter of an inch this way. Please don't notch more than quarter of an inch. Notch it only quarter. Something of this nature is very much okay, right? Then after that, then the next to do now is to place your panel of your trouser to face the right sides mirroring each other. That's facing each other this way. And make sure that the both panels are equal here. Please note, the both panels must be equal. Ignore the flap. If you place this to come up this way, you have made a mistake, a terrible mistake. When facing the band will be like this, as against being like this. One band will be higher than the other. So these are the mistakes you can make. That's why I'm trying to emphasize on them so you know them now. So make sure that the both panels this way are equal, and ignore these points. Ignore here. So once you have placed it this way, hold it in this form, and then start from that notch point, from that same notch point, 7.5 inch or whatever inch you used, and also start from there to join. So make sure it's properly held, and then you start from that notch point to start joining. So stitch from there and then join all along, join all through this way. So after this, the next thing you are going to do now is to, cut off your threads as shown. Cut your threads, and then this is what we have. Alright guys, so now after that, the next thing to do now, look at the results, look at how it's coming out. Everything is corresponding how it should be. The both panels are of the same height. Then bend it to meet each other this way, right? And then you are going to have a curve sewing from the end of the crouch, right? So from here, you hold the two crouch panels together, hold the two crouch panels together, and then start from that same point your notching ended, and then pin your footer, pin your needle on that same point, and then arrange the underneath properly, and then make sure that the both crouch are corresponding this way. You are going to stitch half an inch in all through with a curve here, right? At this point, it's advisable that you have a double threading, or you tighten your stitch if you're using industrial. But for manual machines, please have a double thread at exact point where the first thread was sewn. So once you have gotten to this stage, now carefully stitch here nicely this way, and then curve it at this point, curve it at this point, curve it at this point. Quarter inch is enough, or half an inch, however. Then double thread there. Then you can still double thread again if you want by going back inside again. Then cut off your threadings, and then this is what you will have. Look at how it's coming out. This is how it came out. You see how beautiful the trouser body is already forming. Then this point is when you are done with the front panel for now. So we are going to proceed with our back pocket fixing. So this is where you are going to stitch this, but this stitching will be done later. I will show you. Please don't be in a haste and don't jump protocols. And don't forget to click on my subscribe button, share, comment, and give me a thumbs up and tell me how impactful this video is to you.